I remember a time when my life used to be perfect. My family was ideal, and my dreams were well within reach. It was a long time ago. I started as a baby. I had 3 sisters. My father was strong. He was not the chief of our community, but he's someone that I looked up to. My mother always cared about me, but she never babied me. She always told me that, Firewing, if you want to be good, if you want to be strong, you've got to be like your father. You cannot expect my love all the time. There'll be people who will love you and people who will hate you. And I always listened to her. I always listened to her words. I remember them to this day. I started out as a little runt. At least I looked like that. My sisters were bigger than me. But as the time went on, I became much bigger than them. I grew a lot faster, and I was a lot stronger too. My wings were huge, and I was the only male of my clutch. After a while, my father would visit the nest frequently to make sure that I was growing strong. When I got to a certain age, I was still very little, still knew very little, but my father coerced my mother to kick me out of the nest so he could teach me to fly. Back then, they didn't teach you so nicely. They want you to fly, they're gonna make you fall first. So he took me to the edge of the cliff where other fathers were teaching their sons how to fall. Because they say, before you learn to fly, you have to learn to fall first. I knew that there was a chance I could die. I watched as I stood on the cliff edge, as many of the young flyers took off to the sky, only to fall and bash their brains in on the rocks at the bottom. I saw that and I was scared. But I looked up to my father so much that I didn't want him to see that I was afraid. So I puffed out my chest, and I expanded my wings, and I let him know that I was brave, that I was not afraid to die, and I wanted to honor him. As I looked up into his face, I could see that he was proud of me, and I was proud of myself for not letting him down. Before he could push me off the edge, there was a big explosion or a commotion of some sort in the sky. I looked up and I saw some other tribes of flyers heading straight for us. My father seemed to have forgotten that I was there. He took to the sky, and I heard him let out a cry that was so scary. I've never heard him make that sound before in all my life. I later learned that it was a tribe of other flyers, our rivals, that wanted to take over the community and take the females. My father headed into battle. Beak first, his wings followed. He used them to beat the air. I remember feeling the wind on my face when my father clapped the air before him. It was so powerful, and I vowed to myself that I would be just like my father. I guess my mother had heard all the commotion, so she came after me and she came to find me at the cliff. She called me and told me to come back to the nest and watch over my sisters. By that time, I was like twice their size, so she trusted me by the nest. She took off to help my father. Unfortunately, my mother was injured in the battle. She didn't die, but she could never fly again, at least not properly. She could glide from rock to rock, but she was ostracized from the community because of her handicap. I felt horrible. Now what made me feel worse is that my father did not want me to feel sorry for my mother. Our tribe was son that they did not allow weakness. There was no room for it. There was no room for mercy. My father always told me that if you're weak, you will get eaten. If you pretend that you're weak, you will get eaten. If you are too compassionate to the weak, it is an insult to them and yourself, and you will get eaten. Despite the fact that she was my mother, this didn't matter. My mother understood their ways because it was tradition. She didn't care, and she understood. As a matter of fact, when I would sneak off to go and see if she'd be okay, she said to me and discouraged me not to come back to her, not to help her, and to just look out for my sisters to teach them to be strong. She said that after the next 6 cycles, if my sisters are not as strong as me, that I was to leave them. It was up to me now. It came to a point before the 6 cycles was up, my father would never ever allow me to even play with my sisters. It was seen as weakness for a male who was growing to play with females. Females did not have the same status in our community as the males did. This made me feel horrible, but I love my sisters, but I wanted to also please my father. I didn't want him to think I was weak, and I didn't want my mother to think that either. I grew pretty quickly, and after everything died down, and the rival tribe stopped coming around, my father took me back to the cliff. I spread my wings, and he told me to take a deep breath, to always keep air in my lungs. This way, I could be light with the air. I could be light in the sky. I would not be heavy. He said to me, an empty chest is a heavy chest, and a heavy chest will cause you to fall. I didn't want to fall, and I didn't want to look weak either. So, I puffed in all the air that I could, and I expanded my wings, and I didn't even let him push me off. I flew off on my own. I believed that I could fly. I believed that I would please my father and he'll see me as strong. But he didn't. I fell so hard I was so scared. I saw those young flyers bash their brains out on the rocks below. And that's exactly what was going to happen to me. No matter how hard I flapped, no matter what I did, how much air I took in, I could not ascend into the sky. I fell. But I had the common sense to tuck myself, so I fell on my back instead and protected my wings. That is something that my father also taught me. He said, no matter what, also make sure that you always protect your wings. They're the only thing on your body that will get you out of trouble if you need to. I was lying on my back on the rock and I felt like my whole body was broken. I looked up and I could see my father at the edge of the cliff. I did not realize how far down this was until I'm actually on the ground. I looked up at him and I felt shame. I couldn't see that well at that time because my vision was blurry after hitting the rock, but I could tell that he was disappointed in me. All the other flyers went back home. I saw some of the young that were diving towards me and they took off, able to fly. Flyers that were younger than I was. The shame got worse and I didn't even want to look at my father. It didn't matter because when I turned back to see if he was still there, he left. He left me there lying on the rock thinking that I was dead. The night came on. I was so alone. And I kept thinking about what I did wrong. I practiced so hard. I practiced with my father. I did everything. I thought I did everything that he told me to do. And then I felt a voice beside me. I looked to my left and it was my father on the rock above, closer to me to the ground. The waves below were crashing. Tide was rising. The water was getting closer and I still couldn't move my body. He said to me, "Firewing, you failed." I told him, "I know, Papa. I am sorry." He said, "I don't want you to come back to my house until you've learned to fly. And if you're still alive in 2 days and the water has not drowned you or you've not been eaten, I will come here myself and I will kill you." With that, my father flew away and I did not see him. Surprisingly, my worst fear was not dying. I was not afraid to die even at my young age. It was bred out of me. My worst fear was disappointing my father a second time. As the water kept rising, I tried my best to move my body. Everything in me ached. I remember the words that he told me. He said, "Don't stop until you're the best. Don't ever stop till you're the best. If you're bested by someone who's better, you keep training until the time comes when you can beat them." I closed my eyes and I winced and I took my time until I was able to roll over onto my stomach. It's a good thing that I did, because when I rolled over onto my stomach and I opened up my eyes to look what was in front of me, I saw these weird things on 2 legs with sharp claws coming out of their faces. They were not like me. They didn't have wings, they had a long tail out behind them longer than their body. They had big eyes, and they had claws on their feet too. Somehow they always looked like they were smiling, but I know that nothing was funny. My father was bigger than these things, but they were certainly bigger than me. As I sat there, trying to get my bearings, more of them kept popping up on the rocks. Some of them I didn't even see before, because they were camouflaged with the color of the rocks, started popping up too. I looked around to my right, and I saw them. They crept closer, making trilling noises like they were singing or communicating with each other. I knew, even though I've never seen these things before, that they wanted to eat me. They wanted to kill me. They weren't going to help me be alive. No. There's something to be said, and I thought that it was the water that carried away the dead bodies of all those young that did not manage to fly. But then the haunting realization came to me that maybe some of those bodies were taken by things like these. I promised myself, in that moment, I was not going to be like them. I didn't want my father to see me like this. I didn't want him to think I was weak and washed away, defeated by water, defeated by air. I am supposed to own the air. I am supposed to be able to fly in it. I backed up and started crawling up the rock back towards the cliff face. These things were so fast. They came after me with a vengeance, like they hated me. I don't like to admit that I was afraid, but in that moment when I saw the way they moved in unison, I was afraid. Oh God, I felt terror like I've never felt before in my life. It held me to move faster than I've ever moved. I climbed up that rock so fast, I didn't even realize that I was climbing up it as high as I did. I finally reached the cliff face, and I saw that there were some others waiting at the top for me. Oh God, I could not run back home. I had to run along the edge of the cliff to try and get away from them, but they just keep popping up. By then there was about 16 of them, and they just kept coming, endless numbers. The only other place I had to go, because they were closing off my method of escape, was off the cliff. The water was crashing below. The waves were rocky. There was no light. I couldn't see very well. My eyes were still blurry from earlier, but I knew the only way I could make it out alive to tell my father that I did it. But I beat death is to escape these things. I knew that if I cried out, no one would come to my rescue. It was up to me to save myself. And so, I turned my face back towards the cliff, and I ran as fast as I could, using my wings and using my legs. And without even thinking, I jumped off the edge of the cliff and shot my wings out from side to side. I was so afraid that I gulped the air as fast as I could. My chest was so swollen. It was so big. I looked down below me and I saw the others chasing after me, but they couldn't get across the water. I started making my way across the huge crashing waves below. My wings, still stiff at my sides, expanded to their full length. I started beating them, the tension causing me to ascend. And I got farther away from them. I could no longer hear their cries until I realized something. I was flying. I didn't know how to turn or how to descend, but I was flying. And I kept getting higher and higher. This was freaking me out because I was happy, overjoyed that I could fly, but I couldn't turn. And I just kept getting higher and higher every time I descend. I saw the lightning above, big streaks of sky teeth cutting through the clouds. I knew if I got too high, it'll kill me. I watched one of the flyers, sometime back, fall out of the sky after one of these sky teeth hit him. I knew it was dangerous to fly up that high, especially in a storm like this. I tried to remember what my father did when he was flying. He said, anywhere you want to go, put all your weight in that direction. I stopped flapping and I started sinking. I started falling back towards the bottom, but every time I thought I would descend, the wind would pick me back up, higher for the clouds. The wind was working against me. I remember what my father said, and I leaned all my weight to the right side and it worked. I almost lost my balance and turned upside down, but I was able to shift my weight back to the left slightly, only slightly, so that I could balance myself out. I turned to the right and made a U-turn all the way back to the edge of the cliff. Those creatures were still waiting for me at the edge of the cliff, so I ascended higher, flapping my wings, gently. It was surprising how little effort I had to put into flying just to make myself go higher. And as I did, they growled in frustration. They couldn't reach me. Nothing could touch me. I was so happy. At least I was for a little while, until I looked to my right, and I saw something coming towards me. The creature kind of looked like me, or looked like my father, but it was a lot smaller and it had a long tail with a rudder at the end of it. It was screeching at me, trying to hail me, trying to tell me to stop or to come closer to it. I'm not stupid. I know this was not a member of my family or my tribe, and I knew that this thing wanted to hurt me too. So I flew as fast as I can. It's bad enough there were things on the ground trying to eat me, but now there was things in the air trying to eat me too. I didn't even know where I was going, but I saw some trees below, and I figured that I could hide down there. I didn't want to hit the ground in case those things were on there waiting for me, but I definitely could hide in some branches. So I did just that, learning as I went along instinctively how to dive, and how to swerve, and how to barrel roll in the air, trying to utilize the evasive maneuvers I see my mother and my father use. I was actually doing this, but I could not revel in it long enough for me to even enjoy it. Before I knew it, I was on a thick branch, and nothing was following me any longer. I heard my sisters calling out to me. Firewing! Firewing! What are you doing up there? Oh, did you fly, Firewing? We're so proud of you. Can you teach us how to fly? I looked down and I realized I was above the nest. My mother was lying down and then she was looking up at me. She smiled, such joy on her face. So, she said, you chose not to die. I smiled back at her and puffed out my chest in pride. Wondering where father was, I wanted to show him what I did. She invited me to sleep on the ground with them, but I felt superior. I felt like I earned my way to sleep in the branches, to overlook them and make sure everything was alright. The next day I found my father. He was overjoyed to see me, or at least I thought he was. And all he said to me was, "Good. Now, you are grown." I was happy and I was able to revel in this for about a week before my father became aggressive towards me. At first when this happened, I was a little confused. I thought I did something wrong, but then I realized that it was part of the test. Now that I was strong enough, the next and last test for me was to go out on my own. I could either leave with the tribe of the younger ones that were supposed to leave too, or I could set out on my own and try to make my own flock. I stayed by my family for a little bit longer. I wasn't ready. Every time my father caught sight of me, he would chase me away and tell me it was time for me to leave, and that if he kept seeing me around, he'd kill me. I didn't want to die, and I was heartbroken that my father didn't want to be around me. I thought we were going to rule together. I didn't understand why I had to leave. There were so many other males that were still able to stay in the community. Why did I have to go? I wanted to be strong. I wanted to show him how much more I could do. Maybe he did not want me to be dependent on him or my mother. It's not like I needed them anyway. As I got older, I avoided my father, and I kept coming back to see my mother. After a while, she just wouldn't talk to me anymore. She wouldn't even let my sisters talk to me. I felt alone, and so I made friends with some of the males there as well. The ones that were hanging on the outskirts that were too banned from the community. One of the males told me that if I could find the female, I could start my own. If I breed within the community, then I would have a lower tier, but at least there'd be offspring. Another male told me that the reason why they were banning so many of the young ones is because there's just too much to feed. These males were still in their prime and still wanting to breed, and we were getting in the way of that. First of all, we were competition for new females, and we were extra mouths to feed that were taken away from their new offspring. I understood. My mother became more ill. My father stopped hunting for her. She couldn't fly, so there was a lot she could not do for herself, and I could not even help her. He wouldn't let me, no matter what I did. I even tried to fight my father one time to get to my mom. He threatened to kill her, to do worse to her. And part of me wanted to, because she was starving. My sisters would sneak in and give stuff to her, and one time one of my sisters came to meet me. She asked me if I could hunt for something for Mama. I told her it was dangerous because Father didn't want me to. She told me how Father stopped bringing food for her, and Father had 2 other females that were now with offspring. He said it was useless to feed an old, washed-off female who can't fly, who cannot give him children, to take food out of the mouths of his newborns. He seemed so cold to me, although I still would probably have the same mindset, but this was my mother. I told them that they should do everything they can for her. She helped us and she raised us. And as heartless as I can seem with certain things, I could never imagine myself killing my mom or leaving her to die. My father got so territorial and so protective that he had other males that were lower than him waiting on guard, so if I came back or my sisters came back to try and help my mom, that they would attack viciously. They did just that with my 3rd sister. She tried to fight against them, but they killed her after they ruined her. I realized that I no longer wanted to be a part of this community, and I felt sorry for my mama, but I couldn't stay here anymore. I decided that I was going to be better than my father. I was going to be better than everyone else. All the flyers that were there, I was going to be the best. I promised myself that a long time ago, and I reinstated that promise. I flew high into the sky, and I went away far to another community. The one with the strongest male, that tribe that had fought us a long time ago. Every day I'd fly, make my rounds around the territory, get chased away by the males, and come back around another way. They had young females that were waiting, the ones that had learned to fly only a few cycles ago. They were a little younger than me, but if I could take one, she would be mine. I saw the prettiest female, one of the daughters of the chief, and I decided to lure her. I went up to the side of the cliff one time when no one was looking, and I bent over her, but I had to be careful because her mother and other sisters were there as well, and so were her brothers. I beckoned her to come to the cliff, but I didn't say anything. She would come and try to find me, but I'd hide and play this game with her for a few days until she became so curious she decided to fly out to meet me. I don't know what she told her family, but they let her go without being chaperoned. After a while, I got her to fall in love with me, and I promised her the world. I promised her that I would be the best, and if she would give me children, I would give her everything that she ever wanted, that she'd have to come with me. And in the middle of the night, we stole away, but it wasn't easy. Her entire family had got unwise, and they were livid. They came after me and the girl, but they didn't catch us. We were gone, and I and my own female had decided to start my own family, to be better than all my other members. Something happened to me that I did not expect to happen. I swear to you, I've never felt a feeling like this before, but this female made me feel like I was falling 1,000,000 miles to the bottom of the ocean. My heart felt things it's never felt before. I felt this for my mother, but it's a different kind of love, like I would do anything for her, like I would only want her. I never wanted to leave her side, and I didn't even care she didn't give me any children. I was happy with her. One day, when my female was on the ground trying to scavenge off of a corpse, I saw those beasts again. Funny enough, now that I'm an adult, they are much smaller than I am. They tried to gang up on her and attack her because she's much smaller than me. Since I was so big, I was not afraid anymore. And I went down to the bottom and I chased them away. I used my large wings and I expanded them as fast as I could, as far out as I could, and I started to slam them into the monster's head. They were so afraid of me. I was so giddy when I saw how the tides changed in my favor. Now that I was larger, nothing, except other rivals, could challenge me. I eventually took the female to my hiding space. It's a land I've been scouting out for a while. No flyers were around here, and the only one that was left was old. He would not challenge me because he knew he would lose. I chased him farther away from the territory, and I claimed a piece of the land for my own. A verdant grassland right above a valley. I took the female here and I showed her. I reaffirmed my promise to her that we would rule the world together. She was so happy. She looked into my eyes and I could tell that she was falling deeper in love with me. When we were preparing to make a family together, we started hearing things. Other flyers around the surrounding area were saying that the mythical devil was alive. He was back. I'd heard of this three-headed monster a long time ago when I was little. I thought it was just a story, it was just a myth. But I realized very soon that it was very real. I saw it, the storm that he was pulling with it alongside it, and it was coming straight towards my territory. I knew I had to protect my female and my land, so I told her to stay. I rose into the air aggressively and I headed straight for it. I attacked the creature first head on. Funny enough, it did not start attacking me. It's like I was insignificant, and this made me more mad. We grasped claws and beat our wings against each other. I beat my wings and it seemed to do nothing to this monster. But when it used its wings to beat me, I saw stars. I heard a loud screech and looked behind and I saw my beautiful. Her name was Azalea. And I say was because when I looked up and I saw her heading straight for the monster, that's the last time I saw her alive. She wanted to help me. I had just hit the monster. I was fighting with everything that I had and she came in to try and help me. I couldn't even be mad at her because I told her to stay, but she wanted to make sure that she could protect me. She said that we were a team, and I watched in horror as the creature grabbed onto her and shook her from side to side and threw her away. I watched her fall out of the sky. She wasn't flapping, she wasn't even trying. I scratched the monster in the face and headed for my female, not caring what the monster would do to me. But it flew along his merry way, forgetting that I even existed. It's like I was not even a threat to it. As I landed, I could see that Azalea wasn't breathing. I tried to nudge her, to let her know I was here. I didn't want her to die. There's still so many things that we have to do. Places that we have to see. Children we need to have. I didn't even get to say goodbye to her. Not one word. I just wanted her to open her eyes. I wanted her to take a breath. I wanted her to do something. Just one last time so she could look at me and see that she didn't die alone. That I was right by her the whole time, like I should have been. That I loved her. That my wing was sheltering her. That she could feel my warmth against her body. That she could go out feeling loved. Her death crushed me. And I could not even blame her. I could not even blame the demon. If I hadn't done anything, it probably would have just ignored us and kept on going wherever it was going. It wasn't even aiming for me, but I decided to go and hunt it myself. I started to fight. I began that battle that my female had to come and help me with. She gave her life for nothing. From that day, I decided I would not want to take another mate. I didn't want to have to go through this again. I did everything in my power to train, to be strong, so if the monster came back, I would kill it, but it never did. And I just got lost in all my training. I went back to my roots because this is what my father taught me to do. He told me to be strong, he told me to never give up. Never stop fighting, never stop training. So I kept training. I kept surviving. I adapted. I did everything I could. I ate things that my members of my species would never eat. My mother always told me I was special. I was not like the others. I just thought that it was something that all mothers tell their children. But I felt it deep inside of me, that I was meant for something more. But what does it matter if I don't have anyone to share it with? As I increased in strength, I encountered other creatures that were like me. They were strong, mighty, and titanic creatures that resembled the three-headed devil. I've heard of them. But when I saw them, I became aggressive. I figured that they were going to do the same thing that the three-headed devil tried to do to my land. So I fought them. And most of the time, I lost. Some of them were older than me. I just never knew of them before because my world was so small when I was younger. There were some of them that looked like the old creatures that I used to grow up with. They almost seemed magical. They could throw things out of their mouth. Blue light, yellow light, red light. Didn't matter what it was, in different ways. Some from the tail, some from the eye. It was demonic to me. But I didn't feel like to fight anymore. All I wanted was my space. I flew away from them and gave them a wide berth. Another thing that my father had taught me is not to be stupid. He told me that if I knew that I was outmatched by something, that I should not fight it, because I would die. It didn't matter, and at some point in time, my fight was completely gone. There was nothing to fight for. There was no one to fight for. What was I fighting for? Who was I fighting? I let the monsters fight themselves, and I went away to be alone. At this point, I was done. I was done living this pointless life where I didn't have anyone to share it with, where I was the only one of my kind. I had no friends, no mate, no mother, no father, no brothers, no sisters. Nobody I knew of that was alive. I tried. I called. And the loneliness kept eating me. The guilt over losing Azalea. It was endless, so devoid of mercy. I couldn't take it anymore. I was done. I flew over to the hot mountain that they call the Lake of Death. It had liquid fire inside of it. And I decided that I didn't want to live anymore. Time has become so insignificant to me that I've become lost in its passage. One day I decided to fly around to my old territories. The land had changed so much, and every time it changed, I adapted. I survived, but I could never find anyone else like me. Either they went somewhere across the globe and we kept missing each other, or they all died. I felt like I was all alone. The loneliness has never held itself so tightly around my throat as it did in that moment when I realized I could not even find any remnants of my family. No descendants, no old ones, no new ones, nothing. So I went into the fire mountain to die. It's like my body refused to die because of the promise I made to myself a long time ago. And without any fear, because that's how I wanted to go out, I dove into the lake of death and sunk. But even still, I didn't die, just kept sinking. And as I closed my eyes, it just felt like I was going to sleep. And I never wanted to wake up again.